You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports fans, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. I know many of you you're waiting anxiously. My God, who are we going to start at quarterback on Thursday Night Football against something called an Easton Stick? Now, that either sounds like a baseball bat or a porno star's name. One of the two. Nonetheless, he's the quarterback for the Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, which have the same problem as the Raiders right now. They're drawing more away fans than they are home fans during some of these games. I mean, that was basically a Vikings home game the other day at Allegiant Stadium. And it should be noted, a side note, when it comes to the Chargers, and I'm actually crossing my fingers for this, but Max Duggan just got elevated with the Chargers. That's right, the TCU quarterback that was in the national championship game last year. That's kind of interesting, I think. Okay? I'm always talking to you about interesting. The fact that Max Duggan just got elevated, that is interesting, because if Easton Stick sucks for the first half of that game, maybe we get a Max Duggan sighting, and that's interesting. Because a lot of us wonder, what could he do in the NFL in theory? Guy that played a lot of games. We always talk about that. And I know you're very interested to know, well, my goodness, who's going to start for the Raiders on Thursday Night Football? Well, guess what? Breaking news. We have no idea. We have no idea. Ari Mevrov of the 33rd team come out and said just a few minutes ago, literally, that Antonio Pierce has not made a decision on quarterback on Thursday night versus the Chargers. Aiden O'Connell could be benched for Jimmy Garoppolo or, God help us all, Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is one of these quarterbacks that every time I hear his name, I get a little nauseated. Like 10 years ago, I could hear his name and be like, you know what? With the Patriots or somewhere, you got a shot. Now, I'm like, you've got no chance. You've got no chance with Brian Hoyer. Now, we talked about this yesterday. There's no doubt Jimmy Garoppolo is the best of this bunch. But you've got to see what you got with Aiden O'Connell. Just ride out the year with him. See if he looks like he ends up being the guy. Ride out the year. If you lose out, you're just improving your draft status. I understand you've got like a .0025 percentage chance of making the playoffs. Stop it. Just go down and go down with the ship. Get a better draft pick. Draft a quarterback. If Aiden O'Connell's not your dude, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., who would be my one of my guys. Bo Nix is another guy. Any of these guys that's played a lot of college football, that's my first rule. I want to see 30, 40 games out of these guys. Massive repetition against, real competition. Doesn't have to be great competition, but real competition. So we got that. And then as you can expect, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's not very good. But, I mean, under this thread, everybody's like, just go back to Jimmy G. Now, I didn't think Raiders fans would be saying that. I really didn't at this point. I think Jimmy may go somewhere and start next year. I actually think there's still a chance of that. On the right team. I think it might be one of I'm coming in as a backup, but next thing you know, you look up and you're like, damn, did Jimmy G just go 10-7 next year? I think that could happen for somebody. Possibly a more stable organization that's got a better head coach, and you're not starting out with Josh McDaniels, Or maybe he will go back to Josh McDaniels. God, I just thought about Jimmy Garoppolo and Belichick with the Commanders next year. That just popped into my head. The Raiders, and this is Davante Adams, he has come out and he's made some comments about that piss-poor performance the other day. The star receiver was clearly perturbed following the offensive struggle fest that occurred Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. Quote, "You want to be a part of history," Adams said, "but never that type." No doubt. No doubt. I mean, really. It's embarrassing, too, he said via ESPN. Not that that's the main thing that drives it, but you walk off that field and you've got a lot of fans that pay their money to come see you play, and you go up and put a goose egg. It almost looked worse that they only scored 3 points too. You've seen plenty of teams win 20, 22 to nothing, whatever, but when the other team wins by 3 and they only score 3, it just looks horrible. Guess what? It's horrible to watch. And Red Zone showed a hell of a lot of this game. A lot of it. And it became weirdly better as the game got on. I was like, this is so horrible. It's starting to become really interesting. So hopefully we don't make any more history like that on this side. In Sunday's loss, Adams caught 7 of 10 for 53 yards. It marked the 8th game of the season with fewer than 75 yards, and he has generated just one game of 100-plus yards. You know, I'm going to keep it real here. Davante Adams has got to be in hell. He's got to be in hell because let's just keep it real. I understand the Packers just lost to Tommy Cutlets and Tommy DeVito, and that's a great story, and there may be another video coming about that. But there's no doubt he could have stayed with the Packers, and he would be putting up better numbers with Jordan Love. I mean, there's just no way around it. You know, and Jordan Love's not a world beater, but the fact is he'd be far and away the best receiver with the Packers still. Now, I think if he'd have went to the Jets, it'd be the same kind of shit show he's dealing with now. All right? But I think he got traded. He wanted to come play for the Raiders. But we got to remember, folks, he wanted to come play with the Raiders because of Derek Carr. That was his buddy. That was his homeboy, and that's who he wanted to play with. And before the season's out, Derek Carr is gone. And oddly enough, Derek Carr would look good right now, I think. Who would have thought that? It's so weird how cyclical the NFL is. That's one of the hard words for me. But it's so weird how the NFL is that way, and the fact that Derek Carr's issue was always that he didn't have a defense. Now you got plenty of defense, you got no offense. I mean, what the hell just happened? Really? What's going on there? It's strange, but it's odd how that works out. It's crazy. So, enter in this rumor by way of Jeremy Fowler, and he's a really good NFL insider for ESPN, but it's starting to move in the direction that Mark Davis may know who his general manager is going to end up being. All right? Or at least when you start hearing that's the sentiment or that's the feeling around the league, it's because that's what agents are starting to hear, and it's what other teams are starting to hear that are also going to have general manager openings and would be looking at Champ Kelly as a possible general manager. Point of fact, the Patriots would be looking at Champ Kelly. All right? So that tells you when they say in league circles, and that's what this says, quote, there's a belief in some league circles that Kelly's chances to retain the job permanently are legitimate. Fowler reported Wednesday. He was a finalist for the same job 2 years ago, and he served as assistant general manager there since 2022. Because he took over in the middle of the year, Kelly can't point to much in the way of moves that he has made to improve the roster. Waiving Marcus Peters was probably the most notable transaction of his tenure to date. That's not a great sign. But Fowler laid out what's working in Kelly's favor. Nobody will be shocked if the GM search ends with his promotion. That's going to be interesting. So has he got, and this is something, we've seen how well things have gone between him and Antonio Pierce. But you've got to wonder, does he have a guy in mind as head coach? We haven't talked about that, but he could be sitting back going, but I always said if I got a general manager's job, my head coach would be blah. And the fact is, these guys keep a running list. They really do. Of coaches, offensive coordinators, quarterbacks coaches, defensive coordinators, linebackers coach. You got every kind of coach you may need. They keep a running list of like 5 candidates all the time. What if Antonio Pierce is not one of those 5 candidates that Champ Kelly's been looking at or thought he would hire? I mean, that's something to think about. We never thought about the idea that Champ Kelly could get the job and Antonio Pierce might not. You know, that's very possible. And then it makes you wonder, well, let's say Antonio Pierce goes 500 the rest of the year, okay? You know, he can become a legitimate candidate for another coaching job somewhere else, a head coaching job. And that's something that could happen too. You know? I mean, look, if Mike Tomlin becomes available, and I'm starting to wonder with the Steelers, if you're Mark Davis, how do you not take a look at Mike Tomlin? You know? You pretty much have to. Or it's NFL owner malpractice. It's kind of like the Patriots saying, well, we're automatically going to Gerard Mayo. Well, wait a minute. Mike Tomlin is available. We need to at least interview him or talk to him or something. You just don't know. We're automatically going to Gerard Mayo. We're automatically going to Antonio Pierce. Well, wait a minute. Jim Harbaugh's out there. Are we sure we want to do that with Jim Harbaugh floating around? Jim Harbaugh? You know, a lot of things can happen. I do not, and I've seen this, Belichick to the Raiders. After Josh McDaniels, I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell of that happening. If Josh McDaniels hadn't have been here, I think it'd have been flashing red lights. Belichick to the Raiders. And maybe Tom Brady unretiring. Wouldn't that be wild? That would have been wild. Wow. And playing for Belichick again. I mean, that would have, you want to talk about interesting, that would have gotten interesting. Tell me what you think, black and white sports supporters. As of right now, this is Wednesday, and Antonio Pierce has no idea who he's starting at quarterback. Yikes. Okay. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.